Okay, so we're back in the garage, and this is the 3-litre engine which I just disassembled last week, and you saw the carnage with some of the grot and whatnot that was inside it. I've just sent this case off to be ultrasonic cleaned, and I've also pulled some of the plugs on the case as well. So these have been pulled just to make sure that we can clear out any debris. There was nothing in there, but it's always just a good idea to flush out as much as you possibly can. So today's job is to now that I've had the ultrasonic cleaners remove all the grimy stuff, today I'm going to do some of the fine cleaning, which is removing bits of old sealant. So that's old Loctite 574, bits of carbon and I'm not sure if that's carbon or sealant, but I think it's just carbon and build-up stuff which the ultrasonic didn't pull out. And yeah, just also get all the old 574 off the flanges here. So I'll use a combination of clean razor blades and some gasket stripper, and basically some elbow grease and some hard work. So this is where all the time comes into cleaning these cases. And the reason why we want to make these nice and clean is so I can then do a dummy assembly, put the two halves together, and then I'll start measuring all the tunnels just to make sure that they're within spec. And if they're not within spec, then we're going to make them within spec. So I'm using some of this gasket stripper here, and rather than sort of spraying it straight on the bits of the case, what I'm doing is I'm spraying it inside this old cap, or trying to. It's nearly empty, so I'll have to get some more, but hang on a second. And then I'm just using an acid brush to then dip it up to brush it onto the case. The reason why I'm doing this is I just want to contain it, and this helps to really break down the carbon and any 574 that's on the flange. It's probably not the fastest way of doing it, but I like to try and, when I'm cleaning, I try to preserve what's there, so I don't want to scratch. I mean, it looks, I don't know if you can see, but it looks like someone's already been in here and there's plenty of scratches on this case. So I'm certain this engine has been built at least once before. So I'll just keep going around and doing this. Okay, so I started this up here a little bit earlier. Let's see if that's made life a little bit easier for scraping off the I'll be honest, I'm not enjoying using the scraper. I'm just going to use my fingers now to hold the blade. It just means that I've got better feel, but it also means that I'm probably going to burn myself in a minute. See, there's a little nick in the case. This is where people have been jacking up the car underneath, and it's sort of put a little bump there. So we'll come through with a very fine file, and we'll clean those sorts of things up. So you can see the gasket stripper really makes it nice and easy to slide the old 574 off. I got some on the back of my other hand. So anyway, I'm going to keep doing all of this, and yeah, we'll come back when it's done. Okay, so I've just spent about 10 minutes just going around there with the razor blade and some gasket stripper and some brake cleaner. So the perimeter's reasonably clean, probably good enough to do the other side of the case now, and then I can put them together and start measuring these tunnels and see what sort of clearances we have. And just like that, the left-hand side of the case is now nice and clean, and we're ready to assemble the case and start measuring. Okay, so I've just bolted the case halves together and torqued it all to spec. I do install a nose bearing in the front to make sure that both halves are aligned. I think there's a bloody plane going overhead. Yeah, but while I've got the cases perfectly aligned, as you can see, I did pull all the perimeter studs out. So every stud's been removed apart from the ones that I need inside the case to pull it together. But I'm going to take this opportunity to just resurface this, these sorts of areas where the two halves come together, and that's a sealing surface there for the breather cover. It is actually very nicely aligned, and sometimes you do find these where they're just like a fraction of a millimetre out, you can feel a step, but this one's actually quite nice here. And also on the intermediate shaft plate, and I will turn it over and I will do the underside, I'll do the sump plate as well. But again, just feeling it with my fingers, I don't feel any obvious steps, but I will clean them up just to make sure they're perfect. Okay, so as you can see, I've cleaned up this sump plate. Like that join there is perfect. That join there is absolutely perfect. And obviously, you know, we don't take off as many more than we absolutely need to, but that's going to seal beautifully. I'll just pull the pin and roll it over. You can see the breather area has also been surfaced. That's absolutely perfect. And so is the IMS cover plate area, so that's beautiful too. So it only adds another 10 or 15 minutes to the job. But, well, I guess pulling all the studs takes a bit more time too, but this is just one of those things that I do to try and make sure that the case won't leak. So I've just measured the bores, and unfortunately it's well out of spec. Setting up the bore gauge using my sizing ring. And this is going to be very hard to try and show you this, but I'll do my best. Just under 0.03 out. Spec is 65.00 to 0.019. This one's not too bad. That's the thrust area. That's number one. But check this out. Number two, it's inside. .05. So that's pretty big. Going to number three. If I can. Again, doing this one-handed's a bit weird. Just under 0.05, so, but again, same story. And then I'll see if I can get it into number four, one-handed. And again, 0.05. So, look, the engine will run, don't get me wrong, but it would be good to get the clearances to be a little bit closer to factory spec. So I will pull the cases apart and do what's needed to do that. Okay, so after zeroing out my bore gauge in the sizing ring, I'm just checking my clearances now, and I'm in 18765, so that's tunnel number 5. And don't know if that'll come out. So that's 0.01, so that's 65.01 millimetres, which is well within spec. Again, 65.01. As I just go through the movement there. We go on to number 7. And we're at, ooh, right on 65.00. Can't get any more perfect than that. And we'll go into the other side. So we go to number 1. Just doing journal number 1, we're at 65.015. Number 2, the spec is 65.019. We're just under 0.02, so we're within spec. 3 is just over 65.00, so well within spec. And then number 4, if I can just squeeze that in there, so just squeezing it into number 4, and 65.01. So that's case is all within spec. So now it's time to wait for the crankshaft to come back from the machine shop, and then I can sort of do a trial check to make sure that it spins nice and free. One of the other checks I always do is to make sure that the intermediate shaft turns freely, so I've mounted that, and if I give that a little whiz, you can see it turns nice and freely. Obviously there's a little bit of oil in there, but it's normally these get fed pressurized oil, but it turns nice and free.